It appears we've upset the Journal of Commerce. Electric bike sharing companies need to look at the Chinese bike debacle before aggressive expansion. 5 years in, China's Belt and Road Initiative looks like a giant debt trap. And ATRI makes the case for more hours of service flexibility. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we talk about all these issues and more on this week's episode of What the Truck.
Oh yeah,
that was good. That was nice.
That was a good pop on the Hutton and Smith Promenade.
A local Chattanooga beer. It's a great one.
And for all of our fans listening here, we can't get one by you. I've had a Hutton and Smith Promenade before, so there's a repeat happening.
We have to say there's a repeat happening on this side too.
Yeah.
I've got the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale, named after the majestic Two-Hearted River in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. It's like a combination of macaroni and cheese and a nice comfort blanket, and
wow,
sneaking back into Seinfeld reruns.
And this is every day for you. Wow. I mean,
every Thursday.
Okay, every Thursday you say. Anyway, hey, great to be here with you, sipping on some suds as we absorb the pre-Labor Day news headlines of the week. And boy, what a varied bunch they are, JP.
Yeah, kind of all over the place. The first one is this really fun cat fight, I guess, that we got into with the Journal of Commerce.
You could have dropped the mic after writing this, but instead right now you just dropped the pen. But hey man, like tell us a little bit about the context is, I'll set it up for you, and then you can let her rip.
So tell us about Mariah Baker's article.
She wrote on the trucker strike that happened three months ago in Brazil, and gave us a little update on that. And she linked back to the JOC article, linking back to her original source. Seemed like a good thing at the time, and they have since then told us that they would like us to never link back to their site and never quote them, or in any way use or any of their material or refer to them in any way.
Yeah.
And so they told us that, and so we were kind of like, okay,
that's really weird for a website to do.
We can accept that.
The first word in HTML is hypertext, which is hyperlinks. The internet is links. Like, you put stuff on the internet so people link to it and read it. And that's what we were trying to do. She basically, Mariah said, she was writing her own article about the aftermath of the Brazilian trucker strike. And she said something like, this person said this to the JOC, and then put a link right there. It was
perfectly well attributed.
Yeah. And they were like, oh no, we don't want you to do that. Obviously, they're super paranoid.
And so, actually, we were going to take this in stride, and we're just going to be like, okay, JOC, no worries. But then you got a little idea up your sleeve. I feel like you handled it. You handled it in this philosophical kind of way.
Yeah, I was kind of like, this really shows the difference between old media and new media.
Yeah.
And to give you a sense of exactly how old the Journal of Commerce is, let's just say that they started publication in New York City in 1827. They're older than the New York Times. They are the actual oldest continuous publication in the U.S. as far as I know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you look that up? Did you already know that?
No, I knew that. Because, really? I've dealt with their I know people who work for them. We think they're a great. They focus more on maritime, on containers. They kind of try to do trucking sort of badly. And
anyway, and they're great, but they are very walled off. I noticed that.
Yeah. Well, so if you want to read their articles,
I quit going to them because I was just like, okay, it's very unfriendly.
Yeah. So at FreightWaves, we have a subscription to them. We enjoy the content. We think the writers are top notch. We like the info. If you want to read their, What the Truck listeners, if you want to read the Journal of Commerce's articles
for the low price of $49.99 a month.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
As you wrote.
And so we were like, wow, like it's so weird for a website to not want other websites to link to them. Like we actually pursue backlinks. We want people to link to us.
It's a measure of our success.
Yeah, and like it's just weird. I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that we've stolen 30% of their digital audience in the past 4 months.
Ouch.
But we're still trying to give them love. We like them. We're trying to link back and do the right thing and be sort of professionals.
It's kind of like the new guard, the old guard.
Right. And so our thing, it was what I wrote in this piece, which obviously you can find on FreightWaves.com, is basically information wants to be free. Yeah. We are trying to lower the boundaries to access information, to provide market transparency, to enable small actors, empower small actors to get better price discovery, to ultimately create capacity to keep the economy humming, and to keep and to remove friction from the supply chain.
And we want to help everybody. We're an equal opportunity news source. We will never hide behind a paywall.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting. I mean, I think my favorite part of writing that was when we paraphrased Bane's famous darkness speech from The Dark Knight Rises, and we said, "You merely adopted the internet. We were born in it, molded by it." That was I
can just hear you talking like Batman.
It was.
And you quoted what was it? How do you?
Stuart Brand talking to Steve Wozniak. At the 19. So Wozniak is a Apple co-founder.
Yes, the techie guy who didn't want to do the Macintosh.
Right, but at the 1984 Hackers Conference, Stuart Brand said information, it wants to be expensive because it's so valuable, but it also wants to be free because the cost of distributing it keeps going down.
Yeah,
and that's what we're about. We want to provide the best information possible at the lowest possible cost.
I feel like we're losing that spirit a little bit in the age of the internet. That spirit of, there was a few years ago, it was even more of the internet wants to be free. Now it's getting paywall-y. Isn't it? It feels like a little bit. I'm glad you brought that back up.
Well, it used to be like the Wild West, and now it's almost more divided into medieval fiefdoms of everyone on certain social networks seeing what that network wants you to see. It's less of the free and loose, do it yourself.
Right.
Remember when there used to be website rings, where one website would link to another website, would link to another website, would link to another website.
I'm not real familiar with that.
This is back in the 90s.
I was into hypertext, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
but that's another time.
Yeah, it used to be people would build their own communities.
Yeah, I remember. And linking was a bigger deal even than it. To have a super densely hyperlinked story was
it still is a huge deal, especially for search engine optimization.
It is for SEO.
But anyway, it really just kind of showed the difference between them and us, and we didn't take it laying down. We're okay, if you really want to cut us off like that, then we're going to publish it and talk about what this means for freight market business media.
What I thought was cool about the approach that we took, that your article expressed, was simply an observation. It was an observation about that was cool.
Throwing absolutely no shade on the quality of their product, their writers, the work that they've done, but just saying if they don't want people linking to them, they fundamentally do not understand the internet.
I would have to agree with you there, bro. Okay. So interesting stuff leading us off.
Yeah, tell me about this second story. These electric bike sharing companies, and need to watch out for the Chinese bike debacle before aggressive expansion. Well, what is the Chinese bike debacle?
Well, the bike debacle. I mean, was they had too many bikes. But let's get into that. Basically, the lead of the story is Uber has been, they've been recognizing that the electric bikes, especially, but just the bike sharing community, have been eating into their profits. And so, it's like join them, absorb them. And so that's what's been happening. They have been on this path of extending their services they've been diversifying their portfolio. And they've invested in they've made a couple of big acquisitions. In April, they acquired bike share startup Jump for about $200 million, which is significant for you're thinking a bike share company, and they invested $200 million in them. To me, that's significant. And they also, in July, so even later, a few months later, they entered into the scooter vertical, as our writer Vishnu puts it, and they invested in Lime, another electric bike sharing company, and in this case it was a $335 million financing round. The company is valued at $1.1 billion. Wow! So there's all this excitement.
Any visibility to how much Uber put into that round?
No, that's a good question. No, that's a good question.
I'm sure a lot.
Yeah, like if we shouldn't speculate. But it's two very significant investments in a back to back in a similar community. I mean, if you think I've written on smart cities a little bit in the past few weeks, and as urban centers get increasingly dense, and as parking becomes this increasingly crucial issue, and we're talking decades. I mean, this is happening. I mean, it's happening, but
it's that thing where it's like you're the frog in the pot of warming
you don't want to be
water,
too late to the party.
And you don't realize when the water's boiling. I mean, you look at like a place like even like a mid-sized American city like Nashville or like Austin, they're incredibly congested. And it came out of nowhere. It seems like. I mean,
Atlanta.
Atlanta's a large city, but
you're saying mid-sized.
Even the mid-sized cities, like, it's already happened. Like good point. The major social problems of inadequate public transportation, extremely high property values, and just like not like affordable housing. Like
the problems are here with us.
It creates this transportation need,
and it does. And I guess I'm suggesting that maybe the solutions are there. Let's be realistic in their in how they.
So you think the thesis behind this story is that a lot of money has been dumped into this. Perhaps prematurely.
No. It's not the thesis. No. So like, like Uber recognizes that this bike sharing community is eating into their profits. And also they're getting stiff competition from Lyft, as we've heard of a lot lately, and also Waymo, whatever their issues are, they seem to be surging ahead in the autonomous car race, as we would say. But so basically, I think the thesis of this story is, but with all of that excitement and all of that. Yes, whoa, look at these bike sharing communities.
This almost like this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this excitement and this almost demographic certainty of this need for this market.
With all of that said, do not repeat the mistakes of the past, which is one of the mistakes of the past is billions were poured into a Chinese bike sharing startups as the article mentions, like Tencent, with Tencent did this, Alibaba, Didi Chuxing, all participated in funding rounds for these things. Basically, the long and short of it is, China overextended themselves, produced too many bikes, tried bike sharing locations, and these bikes, they had all kinds of issues. They had bikes, they produced more bikes than there were users. They had bikes getting piled up in these locations. They had bikes getting stolen. They had bikes getting really damaged.
People don't think about the origin destination patterns of bike sharing, right?
And all of these things were eating into profits, and they were on top of everything else. They also, against the sustainability idea of bikes in the first place, they were realizing, China was at this time, that it was cheaper to just make a new bike than fix the broken bikes. Oh, God. And so it was just a cluster. And then it was a cluster truck.
Yeah,
right.
As we said.
So basically, I think the thesis of this story is, while there's excitement in the space, and electric bikes, we should treat them a little bit differently than just regular bikes. Electric bikes are, whoa! Have you ever been on one, man?
No.
They're cool. They're super light. You have to pedal. You do have to pedal a little bit.
That sucks.
I know, right? But it's like you have to pedal a little bit. Man, they go so fast. It's really pretty darn exciting.
That might be my kind of... Do they make electric mountain bikes?
If only. Actually they do. And Silent Barry's giving us the nod. They're in I don't know if this is your cup of tea, but they're in a $3,500 range. If you want one, but boy, you'll handle those berms really well. Just kind of give it a little juice, right?
I barely know how to ride a bike, but
well, you know what?
So
there's something that we need to work on.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good times, man. What a fun story.
But it's so interesting. It's overcapacity. It's almost just like trucking, right? It's managing the assets. Are they being used? How many bikes are actually generating revenue? What do you do with the maintenance? Like you have these people taking your physical asset, the bike, driving it somewhere. Are they bringing it back? Are they ditching it?
Where's this last mile delivery?
You know what I'm saying? Are they all is your network designed poorly, and so that all of the bikes in your network basically end up piled up in some central place, and people Uber it back out of the city after they're drunk? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's people haven't thought that through. Not a lot, but
let's hope that Uber does learn from the mistakes of the past and that they are not repeated. It's kind of a cool story. Uber diversifying. It's all
about asset utilization. It's so interesting.
Because I like the way that you just frame the entire episode.
It's very similar to trucking.
All right, let's see if we can bring it back to asset utilization with our next story.
Oh yeah, we can.
5 years in,
we definitely can.
The China's Belt and Road looks like a giant debt trap, as you wrote on this one too, JP. What a week for you. The Belt and Road, by the way, everybody, if you've heard of the new Silk Road. China's new Silk Road. That's what this is about. Tell us what's going on, man. Some imperialism.
Yeah. So the Belt and Road Initiative kind of saw its 5th anniversary on Monday, and what that is China's aggressive, ambitious plan to develop infrastructure through Central Asia all the way to Europe, through South Asia, through the Middle East, and even East Africa, in order to connect their economy in a more efficient way to the global economy. And it covers a huge percentage of the planet's population and GDP. And what they're doing, and so you hear China is spending $1 trillion to build infrastructure in developing countries. Yeah. Well, no, they're not actually spending $1 trillion. They are lending $1 trillion.
Wow, how Machiavellian of them.
Yeah. And so the piece I wrote started off with this possibly apocryphal John Adams quote. Who knows if he actually said it. The John Adams Historical Society says he did, but who knows. But it's basically, there are 2 ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword, one is by debt. And Chinese geopolitical thinkers still have excuse me, an ideological opposition to conquering by the sword. They think that's what America did. They look at our military dominance and
what they're doing in the South China Sea.
That contradicts.
It's not just all soft.
It's not all soft. But they want to kind of maintain the image of like, okay, we're an alternative to Western imperialism.
Yeah.
But what they're doing basically is they're getting
I don't like it.
They're getting these countries to borrow money from them.
And they're often weaker countries.
Oh, always weaker.
Always, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about places like Tonga. Places like Djibouti, which is a country of less than 1 million people in East Africa.
Wow.
Countries like...
I didn't even know. I honestly admit I didn't know about that country.
Yeah. Places like Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying like, okay, we're going to build this, for example, we're going to build this massive maritime container port for you that will attract so much traffic. It will generate all this revenue and economic development for your country, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay.
East North Borneo? Like, is that another one?
Yeah. No, it's literally all over the world. And what happens is these countries can't end up paying the debt back, and China seizes the assets and then uses them strategically for whatever they want.
So it's very imperialistic of them.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of pushback. Malaysia, for example, just canceled billions of dollars worth of China-funded projects because they said it was a new form of imperialism. One of the projects they canceled was a $3.1 billion project financed by the China Petroleum Pipeline Bureau. And they were like, no, like, we're not going to get into this game with you. We can't compete with you. Yeah. It's a way for you to seize control of our assets.
I think there is a little bit of pushback happening now. We probably don't need to go into the weeds of what every country is suffering from this. But I think if I may interject this about your story, that I think is interesting is that I don't know if it's irony or not, but like in general, when we hear, over the past few years, we've heard of this idea of the new Silk Road. Yeah. It's usually associated with like innovation. Look at this cool things. And when it's fully realized, it would cover more than 68 countries, including 65% of the world's population and 40% of all the global GDP. And it could, the ultimate investment could be $1 trillion. And to me, all of that's like positive.
Exactly.
And then we hear the method to the madness.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like,
that's
wow.
What the story uncovers.
Like they're really putting this infrastructure development first. They're doing it right. Everyone's going to grow together. Like, wow, maybe this is something America should be doing, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But it's like...
And then...
No.
But could you imagine if the United States were doing this approach? Oh, my...
I mean, we do a little bit of it, and we try to offset... we try to make counteroffers.
It's so imperialistic.
It's bad, dude. It's really bad. Like, especially in Sri Lanka. So they said we're going to build this container port.
Right.
And Sri Lanka was like, okay, never use it for military purposes, only commercial. And China's like, okay. But then Sri Lanka couldn't make the debt payments. China seized it, got basically a conditionless 99-year lease on the port.
99 years.
And now they can do whatever they want.
Century.
With it. Yeah. Now they can do whatever they want with it for the next 100 years.
I think this is a story that has like bigger legs than your average.
Just the beginning of how all this plays out.
Transportation story.
Yeah, but it's all about infrastructure. It's about transportation.
Oh yeah,
it's about economies and how they're linked together.
It's a social,
and
cultural,
it's going to be
geopolitical.
Going on, it's going to be going on for years to come. Obviously,
yes, I think so. And we cover it all on FreightWaves here on What the Truck.
Yeah. So the last story we have briefly is ATRI, the research arm of the American Trucking Associations, is making a case for more hours of service flexibility.
Exactly.
A lot of this is already being, frankly, considered by the FMCSA. But, just give us Brian Strait wrote an exhaustive article on this that I definitely recommend you guys read. if you're interested in.
It's really detailed.
Yeah, and it breaks it all down. He's really an expert on this, but Chad, can you tell us a little bit? Just hit the highlights.
The overview of the study. The overall, I think, summary effect of the study gives just increasing depth of credibility to the argument. These aren't these aren't like truckers anecdotally just getting frustrated about what's happening out there. This is substantive, like measured scientifically, with like through like a really appropriate types of studies. They looked at their overall examination. They looked at a 585-mile route. It included one 40-mile stretch through Atlanta. But it did that because it was representative of what they call a representative freight significant corridor.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And they used this stretch and they compared it to GPS data of 3,600 truck trips over this overall area, and they came up with like all of this lost time. And just like with just
lost productivity,
it basically they were like, if you the regulators in charge here, if we could just get a 4 hours of flexibility within the hours of service window, it would
let me wait out a traffic jam by going off duty.
Exactly. Yeah. Well put. I mean, that's they specifically they noted that it would result in a 45.5 minutes less of driving time because the 4 hour rest break would allow the driver to avoid a relatively small 40-mile stretch.
Right. If you're going through a major freight hub like Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, and you have to hit rush hour, like this would give you basically the option to like opt out, take a break, and then you still have all of your driving time when the traffic, sort of tamps down.
One good quote from Straight's article is if only 25 truck trips per day were avoided, the congested weekday time period presented truck drivers would drive 4,700 fewer hours annually to move the same goods the same distance. So once again, if only 25 truck trips per day avoided that particular congested time because of the flexibility, they would save annually. It's a lot to comprehend, but they would save 40. So there's some big numbers.
Yeah, I mean that's over an hour a day of your life back, and you make the same amount of money. Who wouldn't be in favor of that?
There's all kinds. I think it's hard to consume listening to it, but there's millions.
And that's actually what we hear from the other side. Dean Krogh talking about the HOS flexibility stuff that the FMCSA is considering now. He was like, yeah, it's basically like, what it boils down to. If you take all the proposals, it's an extra hour a day. Yeah.
Excuse me there. Let's see. I think that we have covered some amazing and diverse headlines of a week leading up into the end of summer, the beginning of the Labor Day season.
The beginning of the end of summer.
Yeah.
And perhaps just the very beginning of fall peak season for transportation.
Wow. Way to bring it back. And let's do...
It's time for big deal or little deal.
And what's the deal with you? And I think we're on a roll, man. Like, I don't know here. But we are ready to kill it for like the third or fourth time in a row. And are you ready, JP?
Ready. Hit me.
ZED Connect moving beyond ELDs into vehicle intelligence. Big deal or little deal?
It's a really big deal. They're backed by Cummins, and this is the next natural evolutionary step for ELDs.
UPS announces new merchant warehouse matchmaking platform. Big deal or little deal?
I think it's a little deal. They're following XPO's lead here. It makes sense, and I think there's room in the market for multiple winners.
Average MPG up 2% among 20 top fleets as fuel efficiency technology deployment grows. Big deal or little deal?
It's a little deal. I think the best performing drivers are actually averaging over 10 MPGs, not in the 7s. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done to coach even top fleet drivers better.
North America's auto supply chain up in air as Canada wants in on Nafta 2.0. Big deal or little deal?
This is a huge deal, especially for the Windsor to Detroit lane, which connects Canada and America's automotive industries. Anheuser-Busch bringing beer to blockchain advertising with Kiip. Big deal or little deal?
Big deal. Another enterprise application for blockchain. All the data is written on Ethereum hourly and only visible to those with the encryption key.
Mexico instates first ever hours of service regulations. Big deal or little deal?
Big deal. Driving has never been managed on the federal level in Mexico. Rates will go up.
Still striking out the lasting impacts of the 10-day truck strike in Brazil.
Little deal. I mean, it's still chaos in Brazil. They're overbooking at ports by 200% and should be during a boom time of soybean exports, but it's been chaos in Brazil.
Regional manufacturing readings are mixed as tariffs and trucking capacity disrupt activity. Big deal or little deal?
In terms of the story of 2018, this is a little deal. Growth remains positive, but tariffs and capacity are inhibiting growth.
Boom.
Boom. Dun,
Did it.
dun, dun.
Nice.
What a week.
Yeah, dude.
Glad to
Awesome.
cover it with you again.
Yeah,
Episode
so fun.
26 in the books.
So fun, and we beat the enhanced big deal or little deal once again.
Wow.
Booyah.
And that'll do it for the big stories this week. As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're interested in freight economics and finance, come to our Market Waves conference at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine, Texas this November. Visit marketwaves18.com to learn more about this event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.